Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa Grellet. I'm the head of portfolio growth at CoinFund. CoinFund invests in VC and liquid digital assets. I'm here today to talk about DeFi and the future of finance. In today's discussion, we'll be focusing on a few things. First of all, the 5 key problems of centralized finance, what DeFi brings to the table, how do we compare centralized finance versus decentralized finance, and then finally, what is CoinFund's perspective on the convergence of centralized finance and decentralized finance, but also bringing into the mix the emergence of NFTs and how that's going to impact the way we do commerce and think about financial services. So there are 5 key problems of centralized finance, right? In centralized financial systems, central banks control the money supply. Financial trading is largely done via intermediaries. Borrowing and lending is conducted through traditional banking institutions. And so we see these 5 themes emerge around centralized control, where you have intermediaries, you need entities to step in between market players to secure transactions. As there are a lot of these entities, there's a total lack of interoperability between siloed infrastructure, and that creates a lot of inefficiencies in the system where people have to reconcile records, they need to check, they need to take time to execute transactions. And, despite efforts of regulators trying to surface information and have a lot of disclosures, there's still a lot of opacity from an economic exposure perspective in the system. And that is prone to creating more risk in the system as we continue to centralize and add on regulation. The unintended consequences of all this is limited access to the financial system. Today, we still have 1.7 billion people who don't have access to a bank account and, are economically excluded from a lot of transactions. Whereas in decentralized finance, it's a system that's much more open with peer-to-peer transaction done via a common ledger that is transparent, that is auditable, and not controlled by any centralized organization. So when we dive into the DeFi primitives and think about what DeFi offers, you're going to see the same fundamentals that you see in traditional finance. They're just executed in a different way. So the first DeFi primitive, just to level set everyone, is stablecoins, which can be backed by fiat currency or baskets thereof, or be based on an algorithm, or also leverage existing cryptocurrencies as assets. So there are different types of stable coins. They're not all created equal. And we'll talk a little bit later about CBDCs. Then we have something called decentralized exchanges, which allows you to trade peer-to-peer, and also as an individual allows you to become a liquidity provider, adding liquidity to some pools. You can also lend your cryptocurrencies and tokens and borrow against them and receive yield or pay yield in that context. So we have something that's called over-collateralized lending, moving into less collateralized lending, and people trying to figure out what's the best risk profile for individuals engaging in DeFi. And we have another yield generation opportunity called staking in proof of stake protocols that allow you to stake your tokens in order to secure the network. And I put it here in DeFi because it's a yield generation opportunity, and it's very, very specific to the blockchain, and not available in other more centralized capabilities where everything is centrally secured. Then we have the emergence of derivatives and derivatives products, which is pretty exciting. Also, only on chain. So with possibility to use oracles, etc. And then you have DeFi aggregators who allow you to compare and contrast the different yield generation opportunities and get the best deal. And so when you think about these DeFi primitives, and then you benchmark against traditional finance, you see that there are a few pain points, and I'll just highlight a few of them for interest of time. So custody is something that is inherent to centralized finance, as you need an institution to be a custody provider. Whereas in DeFi, you can be your own custodian, and the assets are held directly by the users. The other interesting difference or noticeable difference is the settlement time for transactions, and notably on payments. And we see that it's really important for remittances or other international payments, where you can have from 3 to 5 business days in traditional finance, and of course conducted over business hours, where you can have second to minutes for a token-based transaction to settle on the blockchain, and working 24/7. So we see the efficiency, the different really fundamental difference between these systems. So how do they come together? Is there a way to bridge the gap? And I want to share some perspective here around three main DeFi primitives, and also what trends and what underlying trends are helping that convergence. So we've seen traditional exchanges like New York Stock Exchange, CME, etc. We're seeing some of them offering access to crypto markets trading, but based on the same sort of centralized institutions that they're currently running. Then we see blockchain exchanges or crypto exchanges that are starting to offer access, not only access to tokens, but access to DeFi mechanisms, whether it's staking or other lending, etc. And so you see that these still centralized exchanges are coming to compete in various ways with banks, with lending institutions, and also exchanges. And then we'll see probably in the future, thinking about, and then we'll talk about it when I speak about NFTs, the capacity to tokenize existing financial instruments or assets and transact over the blockchain in a much easier way than the existing infrastructures. So we'll see different ways that different players will be able to either leverage DeFi for their own balance sheet, or offer that as a service to their clients. And underlying that is the regulation framework. And we've seen that with recently Coinbase wanting to offer 4% yield on Bitcoin, and the SEC sort of stepping in and requesting more information. So regulation will play a big role in the capacity for a lot of people to have access to DeFi, and we'll see in the future whether that's going to be a stumbling block or not. The second area, which I think is really, really interesting, is going to be transformative, is payments, stablecoins, and CBDCs. A lot of governments are engaging in CBDC exploration, and having the CBDC as the backbone of international transactions and local transactions and exchange of money could foster the opportunity for additional people to build DeFi applications on top of that, and have that interact with stable coins and payments. So we'll see probably an acceleration of that. We already see it in Asia, but I think as central banks understand the power of CBDCs, there will be mainstream adoption and moving on to a digital experience and capabilities and natively digital capabilities. Then there's collateral and lending platforms. We see that it's possible that traditional lenders or others use DeFi as the backbone of some of the yields that they will be offering to their clients. I think that will come as soon as sort of these institutions get more comfortable with what it means to get a percentage yield on crypto assets. So we're not there yet, but I think more and more institutions will get interested. And so we see DeFi lending platforms, but we also see like the Coinbase centralized lending platforms that are also doing cryptocurrency lending. And of course, the risk here is different from the decentralized finance, but the experience is a little bit the same, and the idea behind it is the same. So depending on how comfortable you are with completely decentralized or semi-decentralized solutions, you might want to go to an Aave, or you might want to go to a Celsius and get sort of the yield. So the key factors that are going to determine, how CeFi and DeFi come together, in my view, are one, the regulation. And we've seen that there's a lot of legal uncertainty. It's not sure we're going to get more clarity in the coming months or years. So the industry has to live with that ambiguity and continue to innovate. The Web2 experience is going to be the major accelerator for DeFi adoption. Right now, there's still a bit of clunkiness in the user experience of blockchain projects. And as the industry matures and attracts more profiles that are less crypto native, and are less prone to the technical requirements that you have when you're accessing DeFi, that will drive adoption. And so also this idea of this convergence of CeFi and DeFi, where DeFi doesn't become centralized, but at least has sort of the centralized type of user experience that people know and are comfortable with. And then we need to think about how large tech and fintechs are, what is the role that they're going to play. If we're looking at Facebook and their plans to launch DM and their wallet. This is really important because if it happens, it triggers access for a very, very large number of individuals, leveraging, as I previously said, on the Web2 experience that they have and the user interface that people are already familiar with, and just switching that on and having the backbone being decentralized finance. And so I think, as people think about it, we'll see, DeFi as a robust backbone and back office type of operations, while maintaining this existing user experience that people are comfortable with. They kind of don't need to know what's in the back end. The regulators need to know that it's, not risky and that the risk is assessed and audited. But I think, as DeFi grows and grows in adoption, we'll see a lot of the, financial intermediaries wanting to maintain their intermediary sort of status, but by offering also the yields that DeFi offer. Lastly, I want to, bring to your attention the emergence of NFTs. And today, NFTs were, usually people think about it as art or collectibles, or maybe gaming or luxury goods. But there are other real world applications and that will come to fruition in the coming years, whether it's around high value goods like computer hardware, real estate and tokenized real estate funds, or financial instruments. And so think about NFTs as just another way of expressing one reality, whether you go through a smart contract or ERC 720, or a fungible token, or a non-fungible token, ERC 721. It's sort of the same asset from a different perspective, different user experience. And so what we see now with art and collectibles is this movement of financialization of NFTs. You can lend your NFTs, you can use them as collateral, you can fractionalize them, you can potentially create derivatives on top of them, and in the future, maybe structured products. There are indices and oracles. And so I think that we will see sort of three convergence: NFTs and DeFi, and DeFi and CeFi, and all that coming together. I'm sorry, two convergence, right? So NFTs and DeFi, DeFi and CeFi, and all that wrapped up in the user experience and the consumer-wide adoption, where blockchain is the backbone and the infrastructure that allows you more transparent, fair, efficient ways of conducting business, whether it's finance or commerce. And we will continue to interact with some centralized entities that will allow for a great user experience. So, we'll see what the future tells us and shows us. But currently, there are so many exciting things in decentralized finance. It's hard to keep up with everything. If you have any questions on my presentation, please feel free to contact me. And thank you for having me.